All right, great. Well, welcome. Excited to be here today. I'm Bjorn Ovick, Head of Merchant Solutions for Samsung Pay. Super excited about our panel today. We have some great folks, partners that are going to be joining us, ranging from somebody from a 120-year-old retailer to a pure e-commerce player that's going head-to-head against some of the largest retailers in the world. A order-ahead company that's working on the customer experience at venues across the nation. And then lastly, a big payment facilitator that's pulling this all together globally. So I have 3 goals for today. The first is that you guys learn something from your peers, the panelists. The second is you learn about Samsung Pay, some of the features that we have available for our partners out in the ecosystem. And then lastly, you meet somebody new. So let's start off with meeting somebody new. Turn to somebody next to you that you don't know and introduce yourself.
You're Schweinfurth. Nice to meet you. Where are you guys based at? Los Angeles? Okay.
All right.
Do you fly here then, or do you just take...
So we accomplished one of our goals already in the first minute. We're doing pretty good. So we have a 70-minute session today, and what we're going to do is walk through a couple things. The first, I just want to level set on how we look at the merchant ecosystem and the challenges that you guys face today. Second, I'm going to walk through at a very high level how Samsung is approaching this with some of the services we have to help merchants, app developers, e-commerce players build better relationships with their consumers. And then we're going to show you how it's available in the market today with some of our partners. Each one of them is going to walk through our current integration with them. And then we're going to open it up for the panel discussion. At the end, if we have time, we'll open up questions or Q&A session for the audience as well. So merchants have 4 common challenges, and it varies depending on what type of merchant you are, but they're all related. Whether you're a 120-year-old retailer, a brand new app developer just releasing your app, or somewhere in between, there are 4 things that you always have challenges with. The first is how do you get new customers, whether it's to download the app, whether it's to walk into your store. Second is, once you have them, how do you get them to spend more money? Once they're ready to make the purchase, how do you make it easy for them to pay you and collect payment? And then lastly, how do you get them to come back in the door? Does this resonate with everyone? All the time. There you go. So Samsung Pay is here to help, and we're doing this in a number of different ways. The first step is we've opened up our channels to our consumer base to send out targeted notifications, present different offers into the consumer's wallet. This is really to help drive new customers to our partners. Second is then how do we increase spend? And we're going to talk about this here in a little bit. We have the capability to integrate into personalization platforms. We have membership. We also have a cashback service and capability to drive additional spend. Once they're ready to buy, we make it very simple to do that through a one-touch payment, whether it's in-store at the point of sale, in-app, or online. The other thing we're excited about that's going to be releasing later this year is auto account provisioning. So when somebody downloads your app, we can now send over all of the account information we have about that individual to pre-provision the app with that information, including the payment credential. There's a stat out there that 80% of apps downloaded never fully provision the account. We're wiping that out with this capability. And then lastly, looking at how do we increase frequency. We do this through location-based near-store communications, as well as sophisticated offer reminders. Again, driving back that consumer over and over again. So now what we're going to do is switch gears and have the panelists come up here and actually talk about how they've integrated these capabilities into their services that are available in the market today. So come on up, guys. All right. So why don't we go ahead, Drew, and start with you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and walk through what we're currently doing today.
Yeah, thanks, Bjorn. My name is Drew Schweinfurth. I'm the developer evangelist of Walgreens' API program. So how many people here have heard of Walgreens? Just a quick raise of hands. Yeah, a lot. How many people here have heard of Walgreens' API program? A couple. Okay. That's usually the case. So what we're working on kind of at Walgreens and what we worked on with Samsung was how do we take the experiences that we've built for inside of our own retail digital experiences and expose those out to third-party developers. And finding meaningful ways of doing that, like what we did with Samsung Pay, is kind of what we're really working on our API team. What we decided to build out here, as you can see on the screen, is geolocated messages for when customers come near a Walgreens store to notify them about deals that are available in that Walgreens store. That brings them into the Samsung Pay application where they can then add their loyalty card, their Balance Rewards card, if anybody knows about that. And from there, they can also clip coupons for the products that they're going to purchase in that store transaction directly from Samsung Pay. And then when they go to checkout, they can pay with Samsung Pay as well as enter in their loyalty information to have those coupons automatically redeemed. So it's been a really, really great partnership to help drive sales in our store.
Excellent. Thank you. Dustin.
I'm Dustin Alpert, running sales and business development at a company called Alpert. How many of you guys have heard of Alpert? Same amount of people.
Yes. Yeah.
We're based in Los Angeles. We're a relatively new partnership with Samsung Pay. For us, we are all about white label technology, making sure that when the consumer goes to a live event, they have a great experience, and that's where the partnership with Samsung Pay comes in. Samsung Pay helps with marketing adoption, and for us, it's for frictionless checkout, making sure that we are able to get customer data, who's ordering, how they're ordering, when they're ordering, and then increasing their spend, which in turn helps with the live venue operators. We have a large footprint in festival space and sporting venues such as arenas out here like the Oracle Arena and the AT&T Stadium. And for us with Samsung Pay, it's, with us as a white label, we don't want the consumer to have a long process of being able to order food, beverage, merchandise. We want to be able to collect the information, and with partnerships like through Samsung Pay, we are able to collect all that information.
Great. Zach.
We knew back then that the Walgreens system was going to be big, but there were a lot of pain points. I think you guys were the first that actually got it right, especially when it comes to incentivizing consumers to actually use the local point systems and everything. So we pulled you up, and I remember I told you guys, some of you will be looking at today, that we have to do gene pigs for you guys. We have to do it. Because the way we see things is we got to do big, but we got to be flexible to succeed, and it has been absolutely amazing for us. Bringing new customers in, bringing the right
Great, great.
Hi everyone, I'm Neha Goel. I help lead partnerships and business development at Braintree. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but raise your hands if you've heard of Braintree. Wow, okay, yay. We're a payments gateway and processor. We're part of the broader PayPal family. And our goal is to take care of all that nasty payments business for you. Ooh, okay. Getting set up end to end so that you can plug in, start accepting payments, and get on your merry way. For us, being partnered with Samsung Pay was incredibly exciting. Our goal is to help consumers and merchants pay and get paid in the best, most secure, most consumer-friendly ways. Samsung Pay, as one of the most trusted brands out there in payments, being the first online integration, it was really exciting for us and somewhat of a no-brainer. So we've been working to get merchants like Boxed up and running with Samsung Pay, and excited to talk about some of the great value we see Samsung Pay bringing to our platform.
Great, thanks guys. So let's switch gears here and start talking about business and what you guys do every day. The first question to all you guys, we can take turns going back and forth on, is when you look at your service and bringing them out into the market, what are the biggest challenges that you guys are facing today?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. I mean, you know, Walgreens, we know our app is 150, 160 megabytes on a phone. And that's a pretty big barrier to entry for most users. So what we've kind of focused on is, okay, how do we take those experiences that, you know, we've built and put all this creative work behind inside of our own application and give them out to, you know, partners and have that experience be more natural for where the consumer's already using that experience. For example, payment in our stores, we knew they were paying with Samsung Pay whenever they were checking out. So it makes a natural connection to say, okay, well, why don't we take our digital offer services that are convenient for customers and put them into this convenient experience for customers when they're using Samsung Pay in our stores already. So that was kind of a really nice connection that we had.
Great, great.
Some of the
Dustin.
biggest challenges we see time after time is customer acquisition and repeat customers. Obviously, you can't have repeat customers without the customer acquisition. So, again, partnering with a company like Samsung helps tremendously for us. Because as I was telling you earlier, our 150 with Walgreens just don't suffice. Whereas Samsung has, you know, a widespread globally of millions of users who have Samsung phones and always willing to spend on customer acquisition to be able to use their products. And then for us, working with Samsung, once you get that customer, how do you make their experience so seamless and so simplistic where the customer wants to come back? So I think those are some of the big challenges we see, and hence why we do big partnerships with companies like Samsung.
Yeah, I guess along the same lines, keeping customers engaged. We used to focus early on when we launched Box 5 years ago. We used to focus on downloads. Now we're going to Samsung just downloads. Right? You know that if 100 people download our app 3 months from now, they only did 75% of those actually in the drop. So now we track user patterns and track engagement. And Samsung is absolutely amazing actually targeting the right customers to bring those best users to make sure that we get those customers to use that. And I think the other thing that's been most fun is clarity on. I think I mentioned this to you. We have had issues with other payment systems in the past. I think one of the most common issues that we had was the customer would build a basket for putting their address in every choose one of the payment system. That payment system would actually default to the address that we had from back when we purchased the phone 2 or 3 years ago. And that is absolutely the customer. It is kind of thing. They come to the customer service. It's absolutely kind of. I have to be honest that from the moment we implemented Samsung Pay, we have had 0 issues after 2 years. That is
Great. And you bring a different perspective. You're out talking to merchants every day, but you know, at a high level, what type of challenges do you hear from your customer base as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's sort of 2 unique challenges that Braintree sees and hears about as a PSP, as a payment services provider. One is making sure that we continue to attract and help the right merchants thrive, right? So we're out there trying to secure our own customer base, a different customer base, but still one. And then also helping our existing customers maximize their reach, maximize their end-to-end consumer experience. And so when we look at what wallets to support, you want to support all the right wallets that people need, but at the same time, there's a ton of offerings out there in the market, right? And no merchant wants to have, you know, the multi-logo effect in other words. And so picking the right wallet can be a little bit of a challenge. What's nice with Samsung Pay is that it made it so easy, right? The pre-installed consumer base, the high degree of loyalty, the great things that people say. People really love their Samsung Pay. People want to talk about it. People want to use it wherever it's offered. And you see palpable consumer delight when they're able to tap into it and use it. So the chance to be, I think, at the forefront of that and allow our merchants to be at the forefront of that and experience that seamless integration to tap into that delight, that's, again, like I said, it's a really easy value prop for us and something we've been delighted to work with you guys on.
Great. Yeah.
Well, I have to thank the team in the audience, but yes.
Great. So we're talking now about how good it is and in the direction we're heading in the services, but is it actually performing for you guys? Is it meeting the expectations that you guys saw or what we talked about? And can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. And it's a little bit different for us being that, our primary business is that we're a brick and mortar retailer that does pharmacy, right? So the thing that we've really been excited about is that we know when a customer comes into the store regularly, they're going to be spending 1x. That's their average basket size that they're going to be spending on average every single time they come in there. With the work that we've been able to do with Samsung and other digital partners, we can see that when a customer comes in through a channel that was digitally enabled, they're spending 6 times more, 6x of what they would have spent just walking into the store, because they're getting information like offers or discounts on the products that they were going to buy or potentially wouldn't have bought, but then are informed about this decision to say, oh yeah, I could buy those diapers or those Kleenexes, whatever they are, along with their current transaction. So it's been very, very successful.
That's great data point there. Dustin.
Yeah, it definitely has helped us. Before we had a partnership with Samsung Pay, just with our way, we would require a consumer name, their email, their phone number. We would require them to put in a credit card. All that, just those 4 steps in itself can be actually 45 seconds to a minute. And, a lot of this is what people live in, and they get very frustrated and things aren't as simple as possible.
And you're at a venue watching a concert or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially with live festival space. You've got millennials that have the app, they want to go from one stage to the next. They want it to be, okay, I want my beer, the beer to be picked up here. I want to be able to pay with Samsung Pay, you click a button, you go pick it up, and then you go to the next stage. So partnering with that has definitely helped. And again, it doesn't matter how beautiful the app looks or how amazing your engineers are in your software. If you don't have marketing and awareness, it's a moot point. It does not, it's irrelevant. So that's where Samsung really comes in and helps in that regard.
Great. And Zach, I know we did some stuff last holiday with you guys. You're part of our cashback program. We're doing some more things coming up soon. How's it been for you guys?
You guys are great different than what we do in the sense that we don't have the publication tools on the tool that you guys have. Publication tools, we don't have the publication. But the great thing about you guys is we set down, how do we make this happen for you guys? How can you help us out? And you're absolutely amazing about it. I think we started getting to change. I think it's a way to kind of have the consumers engage with the app again. So you guys are really incredible. We will use points when they're app and we would send them an order, get it back to the first time you do a customer change from their app, which is absolutely amazing for us. And I think the other thing that's really good about this is anybody who has the talent and training role that's kind of spearfish, so you have something in mind to really search about people that they find it and check out the app. Our app is very different. Our business model is very different because we know that we work to do this at your guest. I'm not going to do it. So we told you guys that, we try to have customers come close to virtual aisles and have things to do their baskets, and you have how to check out baskets for this time to $12, right? And this is one of the biggest baskets online, especially the biggest basket in online business. And this is actually how we make money. And this is actually makes sense because I don't care what you make it, I don't know what to do. If you try to ship this and you put the price across the country, you're not going to make money.
Great, great.
I think one thing that's interesting for us as a services provider is you hear so much about the trend of invisible payments. I should say a few years ago that was an upcoming trend that you'd hear a lot about it at conferences, and today it's so much a dominant theme of the mainstream that it's just table stakes. You talk about millennials not having patience to enter it. It's because this is a generation that has grown up their entire adult lives not only with smartphones, but with mobile-first experiences. They are primed for not only just minimizing the work that perhaps in the past we were conditioned to expect, but they question whether or not they should have to do that work of redundant data entry at all. So when you look at payments experiences, you want to look at things that tap into intuitively how the experience should flow, not things that map to the way necessarily that payments were conducted in the past. Just because I used to, gosh, at some point even pull out my checkbook at the grocery store, right, and actually write that out, doesn't mean that today's payment experiences need to mimic that same flow just for tradition's sake. And I think one thing Samsung Pay does really well is it actually looks at the way that people today live their lives, or going about ordering, or going about buying things online at actual physical point of sale as well. And it taps into that. It works with that. And as a payment services provider, that's what we want to promote, right?
Great. Good insight, guys. So we've talked a lot about Samsung Pay, and let's shift gears a little bit and talk more about what you guys do and some of the learnings you have. Drew, you guys are one of the largest, oldest retailers in the U.S., and which is impressive, and you guys are still thriving and growing in those things. How do you approach the threat of new technologies coming into the ecosystem to take you out?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a very serious issue. It's something that we're thinking about every day. So I have the very lucky position of being not only the developer evangelist of our API program, but a developer on what we call our proof of concept team. So we're directly looking every single day, what is the new stuff that's coming out that is gonna scare our business? How can we build that into our own system, or how can we partner with them to make sure that that isn't something that escapes us? It's definitely a big portion of what we're doing on our Walgreens digital team is looking at how we can utilize new technologies to make a better shopping experience for our customer, because the customer isn't building that list on their sheet of paper and walking into the store and not knowing what products are in there anymore. Mm-hmm. They have that information up front. So making sure that we can give all that information to them in the appropriate places where they're, shopping and how they shop is really what we're focusing on.
Great, great, excellent. Zach, you and I talked about Boxed, and there's many different ways that I can purchase from Boxed. One is through my computer browser. The other is mobile web. The last is downloading and installing the app and getting that set up. I remember the quote you said is, your app is your holy grail. Why is that? And can you elaborate a little bit more around the holy grail aspect of that?
Back when we started in 2015, I think we were just an app for the first 2.5 years. There was a lot of demand for a mobile, for a website, and we created one within a week. But still, to want to have the best experience, the actual Box experience, you need to go through the app. We thought that thing was that way in the future, and we still think that this is the way to go forward. But it is kind of a holy way because, we have a lot of payment systems that comes up and we go, hey, the implementation is very easy, just 2 weeks from, one engineering resource, and then you just put a button on the app. That button, if you put it on a website, it's fine, you got 5 or 6, but if you put it on your phone, it starts to become a bit cloudy, right? And that's when issues start to rise. Like, we don't have a lot of space on our app, and we need to make sure that customers have a clean experience. That's why I think it's partnering with you guys to do so amazing, because at some point we're implementing all these different payment systems that we're working on. We need to put kind of a few good ones that all the systems need to come to happen out there. We need to be big enough and be people that need to be good partners, and they need to be easy to use with free. And that's what I'm on top of that.
Great, great, excellent. Yeah, absolutely, go for it.
Funny you say Box and Holy Grail in the app. When we started this company 5 years ago, the first thing I said is we're going to be the Uber for sporting events and live events. You're going to have one app that you're going to get food and beverage delivered for the we actually are able to achieve the exact same payment solution that you guys came with the mobile web. And for us, we took the alternative route where we don't need the app to be our holy grail. We need our flexibility, our being agnostic to different payment providers to be our holy grail. So you can still achieve the same results, but for us, it's a little different model, but still ultimately very successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, talking about mobile commerce and e-commerce as a whole, and mobile's picking up. From Braintree's perspective, what is the importance of mobile commerce, and what's the best way for retailers to take advantage of it?
Oh my gosh, overwhelming. I think obviously we all know that there are certain verticals that have actually become mobile checkout dominant, which is something that would have sounded crazy only 5 years ago, I think, to say that some verticals see as much as 60–70% of checkout coming from mobile. Some, right, like Uber, are going to see basically 100%. And even traditional retail that was, let's say, 5, 10, 20% mobile is now creeping up towards 40% mobile on phones. Braintree from day one we were designed and started as a way for businesses to easily plug in and sell online. That was something that back in the early 2000s, unless you had a huge development team, and even then it was clunky and painful, you really couldn't get up and running and do. So as mobile commerce was in its infancy then, we bet big on it and said, look, we need to optimize and from the get-go start prioritizing the mobile experience. And I'm glad, obviously today that seems like a very, obvious conclusion to make, but at the time it was something that a lot of people doubted. Especially when it comes to payment methods, we've seen that about a quarter of consumers actually will abandon a cart or have abandoned a cart in the past because they don't see a preferred safe payment method offered. That's massive. 1 in 4 people are walking away from your purchase because they're saying, I don't really see a payment method that I like or I'm comfortable using. I'm not comfortable surfacing my card, or I don't want to pull out my card, or I don't see a wallet on here that I use. Maybe this brand is not relevant to me. By adding in something like Samsung Pay, you're able to jump that gap, you're able to bridge that gap, because while mobile commerce is obviously a daily facet of most of our lives, there's still a pretty significant gap that we see between folks who are shopping online versus actually buying online, right? And so you think about showrooming, you think about ways to close that gap to everyone's benefit, and having the right mobile wallets paired with your app, with your mobile website is crucial to that.
Great. I see some nods here.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. So it's funny, that kind of uniquely aligns what you were saying there with what we've done at Walgreens. So, back in 2011, I want to say 2012, we kind of started removing film from our stores. That was the way that people printed their photos. They brought the film roll in, or the disposable camera in, and we said, well, that doesn't make sense to bring the customer to the store to drop off the film and then to the store again to do the payment and pickup process, right? It's very inconvenient for the customer. So why don't we just enable what we called quick prints at the time, where they can submit photos via the mobile application, right? Have those printed out in the store, and that way the customer only needs to come to the store once, right? And so we banked on that as well, and we said, all right, well, that works really well for our own app. Why don't we give that out to third parties, right? And so now the experience is a customer can come from any photo application that has the photo prints API that we have integrated, and then when they come to the store, all they have to do is use their Samsung Pay mobile wallet to pay and get discounts on their purchases that they're making. And that opens up the opportunity to say, okay, well, maybe I did need that paper towel today, or maybe I did need the Band-Aids or Morph or whatever you would buy at Walgreens. So it's really unique that the traditional retail experience has always been like, okay, come in, buy your stuff. Okay, you want more stuff, come back in, But really focusing and using the technologies that we kind of all provide is like, take what we have, make it available digitally so that they can interact with us more conveniently. So
Great.
Yeah, you're having the store in your pocket instead of having to go back into it.
It's way different.
Yeah.
We know that the customer drops that checkout page and then they'll come back. It's easier to explain that. So having that one big option is actually going to stay for us. And what we've seen is that customers trust mobile payment systems more and more. I think they start to understand the technology that goes behind it is actually much better than boosting a system.
Great. A lot quicker. Yeah.
And the idea that you can save your card.
Mm-hmm.
So that will let you put it on one time without to enter another card ever again.
Yep.
That's massive for us. I mean, I talked about the trend of invisible payments. Having something like card on file is a huge driver for conversion, right? The majority of carts overall in e-commerce are still abandoned, as we know. Something like 65, 68% of carts are actually abandoned before checkout. So when you actually have a card on file and you can go ahead and allow consumers to maximize their shopping experience, right, by minimizing that time at checkout, by capitalizing on intent, card on file, wallet on file is massive.
Absolutely. Funny story today, or last night I was heading home and having card on file and those things. I was going to call Uber up and have them take me home, and taxi pulled up. So I jumped in. What did I do when I got home? I got out of the taxi cab and just walked in the door without paying. And you're in such a habit today of just having your card in the cloud, and it takes care of itself. So it was an interesting experience along those lines. The guy came, was banging on my door, and went out and gave him a tip. But
I've done that once, and the driver sort of rolled his eyes and smiled and said, "Ma'am, I'm not Uber."
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
Because I always think about it, I take a taxi and I spend $40, I'm like, man, I just lost $40. But like in Uber, I have something that's my card's in the cloud, and it's $40. I look at my phone, oh, that's what it was, and I put it away, I don't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
So those type of antics and
Yep.
are reasons why people actually spend.
What's interesting with your model too about having the card on file is you have a lot of different individual integrations depending on the venue, whether it's Dodger Stadium or a festival in, Riverside, whatever it may be. How does that happen then? I mean, a lot of people aren't going to store it with your service, so it makes it even more important to have multiple ways and easy ways to pay, I would imagine.
Well, the beauty for us is working with companies like Braintree, basically the store token.
Yep.
So that customer is actually in our database. So we've actually, the festival we did with you guys just recently, those customers were actually at 3 of our other venues. There were 4 that we counted. We're at Greek Theater in Los Angeles, Dodger Stadium, Staples Center, and StubHub.
Got it.
That same festival.
Yep.
So we actually had all that information.
Perfect.
Which was really interesting.
Being able to tie that together across the venues.
And so with that data, we know this customer is a festival goer, and also ordered a hot dog at Dodger Stadium, and then also ordered a Modelo at StubHub.
Yeah.
So all that was really invaluable for
Yep.
us. It was actually interesting to see.
Great.
Yeah, if I can just add on to that, I think one of the things as a payment provider, we have the Braintree Vault where we store all your card and payment information so that you don't have to take on that liability. And when you actually add in Samsung Pay as a wallet, so you can have a common identity across all these different events, right? Be able to just hit that wallet on file really easily and have that stored in the cloud in a vault that you don't have to handle and deal with, right? That makes life so much easier for me as a consumer that I don't have to go ahead and re-enter all my information.
That's great.
And then alternatively, if Samsung is offered at every single one of the venues, consumers don't even have to worry about it.
Yep.
It's all stored there.
Absolutely. That's great. So we've talked a lot about making a seamless buying experience. So I get my product, pay at the point of sale or online, cloud, cards are in the cloud, credentials are secure, those things. What about driving the customer in and increasing basket? And Drew, you guys have a pretty sophisticated personalization platform. I was visiting with our head of product for our VAST stuff earlier, and he walked in, was it Rob, Walgreens over the weekend, got a very relevant offer right to your phone. And how do you guys do that? I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, so it's really cool.
It is.
Really easy way to start. No, we have what we kind of call our recommended offers engine. So by knowing just a couple of keyword or key things about that customer, for instance, their phone number, we can then associate that to the loyalty card of that customer. And from there, then we can associate that to past purchase history, as well as the market that customer's in and the type of products that customers in that market like to purchase, especially when they're discounted with certain types of offers. Using all of that and some really awesome machine learning that's going on in the background, we can then have this model for every single of the Balance Rewards customers at Walgreens. So by hitting this API that you guys are hitting in Samsung Pay, you're getting directly targeted offers for consumers when they come to shop at our stores. So then you guys do the really cool thing about notifying them when they come near our store to say, hey, why don't you check out these really awesome offers that were built directly for you? So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's always fun to hear stories from others too. I always talk about it, but when somebody else actually works for it, it's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Dustin, we were talking about this earlier, but from a mobile ordering standpoint, an order ahead standpoint, where do you see that ending up in the future when you look at big venues and festivals and those things?
I think it's only going to grow.
Uh-huh.
Big stores like Starbucks that are proving the model for everybody who have endless amounts of capital and are willing to try new things like as the only order ahead stores. There's a Starbucks store in Seattle. The only way you can get to do it is by ordering ahead. So they're trying out new models, trying out new beta versions, and releasing their information to the public. As we all know, this world right now is driven off of millennials purchasing because they don't really have a concept of money, but they are willing to spend and willing to try new things, and they think that just having your credit card on file, no one's ever going to be able to touch it. So, it's only going to grow. We've seen a big shift in the industry from where we started 5 years ago to today. A perfect example, we have an NFL venue right now. When we first started, we did 8,000 seats just to try to test the model, see what it looked like. We did 0.7% adoption in those 8,000 seats. Today now is going into our 5th season, and we have about a 23% adoption.
Wow.
And obviously the marketing has picked up a little bit, and that's where partners like Samsung Pay or Anheuser-Busch come in to be able to let people know that that service actually exists, but it's only going to continue to grow.
I like it, beer on demand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have that balance, but yes.
That's great. So 1 in every 4 after 5 years was actually using it.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
It's about 4.03 right now.
Uh-huh.
That's the exact number.
Okay, sorry, missed it.
No.
Yeah.
Very consistent with the number.
Exactly.
It's a trend that's only going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Walgreens is doing it. CVS is doing it. Starbucks is doing it. Coffee Bean is doing it. I wouldn't be surprised if Phil's Coffee has something in the works. I mean, there's all these companies out there, and everybody wants consumer data.
Yep.
Because what you don't get right now from walking into a Starbucks and swiping your credit card is they don't know that Bjorn ordered his iced macchiato on Tuesday at 5 p.m. But they do know that if he orders it through the app. So they're all trying to get all this data so they know if they can do the targeted push notifications to those customers. Because I think it's an explosive market that's going to continue to grow.
Great. Zach, we talked a little bit about the role that mobile's playing in your guys' business and e-commerce and driving that. Obviously, you guys sell a bunch of different products, a lot of staple products as well. What's the mix today, and how does mobile play into that e-commerce aspect and balance that out?
There were a lot of pain points at that time, but as the industry grows and matures, we see that these issues that they close to the customers. And I think that we definitely understand it's going to be a huge kind of win if you get that back. And there's a couple of things that it offers that I think attract new customers, millennials. Like you said, they absolutely have zero cost of money. They don't carry lots with them. They don't have cash on them. And like 85% of them actually don't know any of the mobile phone, so I don't know. So all of them have older essentially, and then the biggest customer segment out there. And if you do want to market, especially with Gen Z, so folks that are born after 1995, you actually need to give them different checkout options, and that can go a very long way. I think it creates customer loyalty like nothing else. I guess another thing to it is I think mobile payment systems make the collection of data so easy, so much easier. You can actually do that so much with Samsung Pay than you do with anything else. And for us, it's very important to have that catered experience with the customer where, if you don't have a dog, like you should absolutely, or if you don't have any pet, you should absolutely never see our pet category. Like, there's no point in showing you dog food if we know we don't have a dog, right? Collecting all this data helps us kind of create the right strategies, right promotions, targeted ads, all of that. And that's super important for us and making sure that we keep the customer engaged.
Great.
Yeah, I think for us, as long as there's always obviously a line with responsibly collecting data and having the consumer feel safe, but what we've really seen is that consumers are eager for data so long as they can trust it's secure and safe to be passed in ways that, like you said, make their lives easier and make discovering what they want to discover not as much of a challenge as it is, right? We hear a ton about the consumer pain points of discovery still from our merchants. And when you think about ways in which we can pass, like I said, common IDs for us to ID who the consumer is, what the consumer wants, and pass that amongst the different parties, it sounds like a massive challenge, but when you take in wallets like Samsung Pay and payment information as that common ID, you're able to unlock a ton of insight into that consumer. So Braintree, for example, has invested a ton not just in offering the right wallets, but in being able to actually pass those wallet credentials between different players in the ecosystem with our Braintree Extend product, right? We see ourselves not just as a payments processor, as a way to actually get paid, but also as a commerce OS, as an entire fabric that knits together not just different merchants, but merchants and their loyalty services providers, merchants and specialized fraud services providers. And when you look at payment information as kind of the linchpin to all that, you start to see a lot of possibility.
Great, great. Well, we're talking about a lot of interesting things here, and a lot of it comes down to how easy is it to actually implement this stuff. And I'm going to ask a question of how was it working with Samsung around this? And each one of you guys have implemented this in different fashions, from personalization membership to mobile web to in-app to providing us as a payment option. But how was it working with our team?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we work with over 300 partners on our API program. Of the top partners that we've worked with, I mean, Samsung, you guys are top of the line. Being able to meet directly with you and Steve and everybody has just been a really great experience, and the integration process was very easy. We said, here's what we need to do, here's what you need to do, and then we went and did that. So, yeah, no, it's been really great.
Great.
And I think, if you want to see some really cool use cases of how Samsung Pay works, go to any one of the 50 Walgreens or whatever that are in San Francisco. It's all working, and it's as you described earlier, it's cool. It works, and it's fun. So, yeah.
Great. What about mobile web integrating in?
For us, we have not 300 integration partners. We probably have around 50. Samsung is definitely in the top. We work with big legacy point of sale systems. We work with other loyalty providers. Other payments, you guys are far and above better than anyone we work with. I think working with Samsung, it's great to see that not only the dev team has a big interest in the product, and making sure that it looks right for the business development team as well, making sure the flow's right. Even if the Samsung Pay button is right there, it needs to be right there. Little things like that to show that they care actually does go a long way. Because for us, we're just a software company. We're a software company that has great idea, great technology, and we need partners like Samsung Pay who are invested in making this thing work. Because like I said earlier, you can have the coolest app, you can have the most aesthetic look, but it only works when you have partners that are invested in it.
Great. And on the in-app side?
So, I remember back when we were having that discussion, I remember our CTO was just hoping that we would be another payment app. I think the business case was there through all the things that we've done with you guys. I think once we send over the documents and they show how easy it is, and the business case was there, it's absolutely something. I remember talking to the engineer at that time that was looking at you guys. Actually, Braintree is one of the best partners I have to say.
Thank you.
I remember talking to the engineer.
Great. Good. Good.
I'm smiling because my engineering and product counterparts are actually here in the audience, so that was for them. Working with you guys has been fantastic, right? We've been working together for the past 6 months or so on building this integration out. One thing I'll say is that we appreciated how international and global Samsung is in its thinking. Often when we internationalize wallets, it can be quite a headache because the architecture to do so can differ dramatically by region, right? With Samsung Pay, as we work to roll out internationally, as we look at other geographies, we already saw from the outset your teams thinking about how can we make this as global as possible, as easily as possible, so that as we roll out to more and more places in the world, we don't have to redo extra work. So I think that global mindset is not something you see, unfortunately, as being common to every single partner, and it's something we very much got to enjoy with you.
Great, great. So we've talked about driving people in. We've talked about making it easy for them to pay. How do we, tell me a little bit more about your loyalty strategy. In Box, for example, you guys have a pretty high acquisition cost to get them in once. What strategies do you see working to get them back and making it a habit to fulfill?
So, when you're a small startup and a consumer will do it, just want to get in the app. But I think now we're going to have some strategies to kind of build what our consumer looks like. We know the data looks like, we know how they shop. And I remember we were having that discussion with you guys. Yeah, I think we have users like 50 million users, something like that, across your device universe. And I was telling you that even if we pay $1, I remember the numbers, right? Get all those users into our app, essentially have 50 million users now. Probably most of them can't use any app, pay you guys $50 million. So how can we find in that universe that the customers that we want, right? The customers that will purchase at least 3 times. Who will be able to ask for at least $100 every time. And you guys absolutely are super helpful. Help us get to those people through the right channel, right? We try to figure out how the customer looks like, what kind of devices do they own. Then we see that as a great best play. Like you guys are a massive company, but we're very flexible in a lot of ways. So we're able to figure out a payment structure that actually helped us. Every kind of counts when you're a startup. We're actually able to help us kind of create that incentive structure where customers will purchase one, we give them another needs to come back and purchase one more, so we incentivize the third purchase, and then from then on, after someone purchases 3 times, it's like it's our responsibility to make them honest.
Well, and I remember you guys sharing, looking at your guys' data, is once they make that third purchase, you have them, and they're going to keep coming back. Is that still stand true? Yeah.
We know that once a customer takes that 3 times, they probably love the experience, they know what we sell, then they probably interact with the customer service at least once, so they know what that is like, and then it's absolutely our responsibility to make sure that we keep them. Right? There's no excuse if they drop, and if there's something that they really like, I think they do so.
Great. Dustin, you guys are a little bit different because it's more sporadic. I don't get to concerts all the time, maybe once a quarter, twice a quarter. How do you guys get people to continue to use your guys' capability when they're at those venues that have it?
Partnering with companies like Samsung Pay. Again, like the festival we had, you guys offered incentives for people to use the app. We had a partnership with the music festival and food service company, and anyone that used Samsung Pay got $10 off their first order. If I was at that festival, I would absolutely take full advantage of that.
Get you half a beer. Yeah.
That covers your first beer.
Yeah.
So we have to work with partners.
Yep.
Obviously, like I said, technology is only as good as the marketing and incentives behind it. Samsung really cares about customer acquisition and making sure that their users have the best experience. And for us, we really care about making sure that our clients have the best experience. So the partnership between us and companies like you are extremely valuable to us just because we care about the same thing and all achieving the same goal.
Yeah. And do you guys see that once somebody uses it once or twice, the next time it's available, they will? Okay.
Sporting venues specifically, we have over a dozen sites on the mobile side. Big venues such as Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Paul Brown Stadium, big NFL stadiums, and the return rate is pretty amazing. We've seen anywhere between over 30% to over 50%,
Wow.
which is really good considering that not everybody goes to the game, and sometimes some people are one-time users. But we really try to target the season ticket holders. That to us is the best type of marketing we can do.
Great. Drew, you guys have a different problem, I guess, is people go to drugstores all the time, once a month, twice a month. But for you, it's when you have them in the store, how do you get them to buy more stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it mathematically, the Balanced Rewards program has been around for quite some time. And if you look at the number of accounts that there are in our loyalty system, essentially every adult in America has a Balanced Rewards account. Right? Like, we have people that are in our loyalty program. We have people that are in other retailers' loyalty programs. So our big focus is making the experience more convenient for them and making them have a cheaper experience when they shop. Because that's part of the convenience factor, right? So giving them all of the different ways that they can actually add the loyalty card to however they're shopping, specifically through Samsung Pay, for example, that, it's something that I think we've made our business be very fearful of, is like, you need to do this or we're going to lose these customers. They're going to go somewhere else and shop. So for any of the people that are retailers that are out here in the audience, you need to go back to your business and make sure that you're making it very clear that if you're not connecting with partners like Samsung Pay to make that shopping experience convenient, specifically a brick and mortar too, it's like you're going to lose. Like those customers are going to go away. So that's kind of how we're looking at it. Is like open the doors so that we can connect with partners so that we can make that shopping experience really convenient.
Great, great. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to open it up to the audience for any questions you may have. Go ahead.
I think they're
Oh, there's a mic here. Yeah. I forgot about that. There you go.
Hi.
We need everyone else to hear.
Okay, fair enough. Just might be slightly out of the context, but the theme I heard here was expediency.
Uh-huh.
So my question is, what are your thoughts about the other digital marketing channels, specifically RCS, the next generation of SMS, both for Samsung and a brand like Walgreens? I know you guys are involved in it, in terms of activating or enabling Samsung Pay with everything that you just talked about inside the messaging, basically no apps, just inside the messaging, especially since millennials prefer that to an app that they have to download. Can you comment
I'll touch
on
on that because I actually sit right next to our product manager who's in charge of our RCS experience. So, very similar to what I just said, what we're looking at Walgreens is, okay, there's new technologies that are always coming out. How can we utilize those, right? So we've built an RCS experience where the customer can communicate about what their nearest store is, when their refill is available for their prescription, as well as some of the additional information around status and stuff like that. So for us, it's a natural connection of saying, okay, we have this really cool experience that we built with this technology, RCS or SMS. How can we connect that now with the payment experience that it then happens in store? So when the customer does all of that, really cool RCS experience, comes into store, then they see their Samsung logo right on POS. They can use that same phone that they were communicating on and go, oh yeah, done, paid. So it's kind of a natural connection that we're trying to make between the new technologies that Samsung's making available as well as the new technologies that are coming out in the marketplace and how we can bring those into our business.
So just quickly, is it market adoption, the barrier, economics, or technology challenges?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it's the economics, right? I mean, any new technology is going to cost money to integrate or find ways of making it work inside of your business, and really proving that back to the business that sometimes it's worth taking a loss to invest in a new technology and make that risk is something that sometimes needs to be done.
Thank you.
And also on the technology front, where is the product roadmap?
Yeah.
Big companies like Walgreens, even us as a small company, our product roadmap, we could be coding for the next 20 years and never be. So when new technology comes out that we work with, how important is it? What type of return on investment do we get? Are we going to have to go out there around to try to do this, or are we going to fight for it and do it because it strategically makes sense?
Great. Thanks, guys. Any other? Oh, right here.
Hi, my name is Ravi. I work for Royal Bank of Canada. So I've seen that most of the talk here was about the payments, and as a bank, we own most of the payments as well, right? So one point which I actually found really interesting was the responsibility of having the data on the customer, like how you secure and stuff. Like that's actually amazing to hear that everybody actually cares for that the responsibility. But I also heard that you also share data among each of the merchants, like Braintree shares data from. So how do you responsibly educate the customer that this is actually happening behind the scenes, and how you also take care of all those security around that? Like,
Yeah, so from my perspective, we're not just sharing data. We're giving the consumer the ability to send that data over easier than punching it in with your thumbs into your phone. So from our perspective, the consumer is in control of that data and what they want to do with it to disseminate it out to our partners.
Yeah, I think very much so. It's about giving consumers control over their data to share it so that they can unlock new experiences, right? So I think I mentioned a tool that we have, Braintree Extend, that actually passes payment data securely with PCI compliance factored in, of course. And when we think about deploying that, we very much go through a detailed process with our partners, with our merchants, to make sure that this is something that consumers are actively opting into, right? So that they have checkout from multiple merchants at one single point rather than having to re-navigate, click through, fill up a new shopping cart, right? These are experiences that folks are eager for, that are rapidly becoming the new table stakes, like I said. So it's less a question of sort of indiscriminately sharing data, but creating synergies through data for the consumer's benefit, always actively with their consent.
As a bank, we face that issue as well, like how we responsibly educate the client, right? So also coming back to the offers, like how do you see, how many offers is too much for a customer? Like you keep on bombarding them with emails or like offers that show up in the Samsung Pay, because we also face those kind of issues day in and day out. It's like, how do you resolve those things? Like, is it market research or stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been offering offers at Walgreens for a long time via our paper roto that we send out. So we have a whole team that's involved with like, how many offers do we give someone? What are the value of offers that we give of the things that we're actually discounting? You know, what I can tell you though is knowing all of that business logic that's existing there inside of our weekly ad experience, we've built that directly into our APIs. So you can pass things like sort by offer values, sort by direct categories with those offer values, and then even limit it to a number of results with then pagination that goes beyond that. So that's all what they integrated. So it makes the experience kind of similar between whether you're shopping on the Walgreens.com Coupons Hub, the Walgreens app, or even inside the Samsung Wallet. So you provide that same level of experience that you then have all of that business logic directly for the consumer of how they would interact with you.
Festivals are 2-3 days long, so for the festival goers, they want to try to target them at least once a day. You're spending tons of money on tickets, spending tons of money on the merchandise. Why not try to give them some incentive? People will use them happily. So a lot of events will do more frequently.
And then the location-based stuff alone too. I mean, customers aren't getting this spam to them every single second via emails or anything like that. It's, you know, when they come near the store, when they're shopping, they're going to get this information. So, you know, it helps make that experience a little bit less spammy.
Yeah, I was going to add to that is the relevancy of it, as well as is it contextual, meaning relevant to when I'm actually in store, near a store, whatever it may be. You know, I have a 11-year-old and a 9-year-old. If I get an offer for diapers, I'd be upset. And if it's getting pushed to me every 5 minutes, it doesn't make sense. We're still learning. We're going through that now. We're actually having a debate about it internally of how often to message, when to message, what are the right channels to do that, looking at the data, hearing from the consumers as well as our merchant partners of how to accomplish that. But I do think there's a tremendous amount of value that's about to be unlocked to make it very contextual, and we're just at the surface, at the tip of it, just starting.
And that's what great is. It changes. It's a very dynamic thing. So, being able to support it with our various different types of offers and promotions and deals that we do, I think is really important. So,
great. Any other questions? Got a couple more minutes here. All right. Well, again, we had 3 goals today. One was to learn about Samsung Pay, some of the interesting things that we're doing with our partners to drive new customers, get them to spend more, make it easy to buy, and get them back in the door. Also wanted you guys to learn from some of your peers about what they're doing in the marketplace from a nice mix of our partners. And then lastly, meet somebody new. So hopefully we accomplished all 3 of those things and appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.